Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Goomer22 here, bringing you another draft information video. For this one, I wanted to talk about some abilities that I feel like are pretty uncommon in typical VGC drafts, usually because they're just seen as not great abilities, or maybe the Pokemon that have these abilities just have objectively better secondary abilities, so those normally get used. But I want to talk about some of the situations when you might consider using some of these abilities, because I think sometimes there's just sort of written off as a worse ability, and the awesome thing about draft is that you can tailor your team to any specific situation and matchup that you have. So I think it's important to consider all aspects of your Pokemon, even if you have some of these abilities that on their surface might not seem that great. So without further ado, let's jump into it. And also, if you guys like videos like these, or if you have suggestions of other abilities, Pokemon, something for me to talk about in a format like this, let me know in the comments or just shout me on Discord or something. I really enjoy doing these, and I think there's a lot of underexplored aspects of Draft League that there could be some more content around. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Cute Charm. So let's look at the Pokemon who get Cute Charm, right? So you've got Chinchino, Clefable, Lopunny, Milotic, Sylveon, Wigglytuff. So a lot of these Pokemon have pretty good other abilities, right? You've got Skill Link, Magic Guard, Unaware, Klutz and Limber aren't bad. Marvel Scale Competitive, Pixelate. That's a super cool ability. But let's use Sylveon for a second here. So Sylveon Pixelate, your normal type moves become fairy and have 1.2 power. Well, that's awesome if you're using a normal type move like Hyper Voice or Hyper Beam. Sometimes those are common. Quick Attack is also nice on Sylveon if you're using Pixelate. But the thing is, for a given matchup, you may need to hit certain calcs against opponents. And what's nice is you can use the fact that most people expect Sylveon to be Pixelate to your advantage. And you can run Cute Charm. So I've actually had Sylveon before, and I ran Cute Charm. And one of the reasons was I was facing a Rillaboom team, and I was using, I had Grassy Seed, and I was using a stall set with like Yawn, Wish, Moonblast, Protect. So I was trying to, yawn them, heal back some health, and then, hit them hard with Moonblast. And the thing about Cute Charm is Cute Charm has a 30% chance of infatuating Pokemon of the opposite gender if they make contact. Now, you can use this to your advantage if they have specific Pokemon who have to be certain genders. So, for example, let's say you're facing a Kangaskhan, right? Kangaskhan has to be female. You cannot change Kangaskhan to male. So, and what's really nice about that is Kangaskhan typically runs Fake Out. And Fake Out's a contact move. So, if you're using Sylveon and you know you're facing a Kangaskhan, you can pretty reliably run male, and then if this Kangaskhan fakes you out, you have a 30% chance of infatuating that Kangaskhan. Another bonus to, or another reason why you might want to run Cute Charm on something like Sylveon, is, Pixelate turns normal type moves and they have 1.2 power, but you may need. So Moonblast is actually slightly stronger than Hyper Voice. Hyper Voice is 90 power, but you get a 75% reduction because it's a spread move. And so sure, that's nice in doubles. You can just splash it and hit damage other Pokemon, but Moonblast is 95 power, and it's not spread, so you don't get that reduction. So you do get a 1.2 power boost, but what ends up happening, do a quick calculation here, is 90 times 0.75 times 1.2. It's only an 81 power move. So Hyper Voice, when you're hitting a specific target, is an 81 power move with Pixelate, but with Moonblast, it's 95. So if you need a KO on a certain Pokemon, and you don't necessarily need that splashable Hyper Voice damage, and you're just running Moonblast, well, if you're not running any normal type moves, there's really no reason to run Pixelate. You might as well run Cute Charm, because you don't know what situations when it's going to help. So I think with contact, with these contact abilities, you typically see it against like Fake Out. But also there are other Pokemon who typically only run contact moves. You might have a Rillaboom. Rillaboom typically runs stuff like Fake Out, Grassy Glide, Knock Off. All these are contact moves, and all of them have a chance to cause infatuation. Now, you obviously don't know what gender Rillaboom's going to run. It can run male or female or just be random. But it's still a 50-50 shot that they are the opposite gender of you. So if you're not running normal moves, because you want to run Moonblast or something like that, or maybe you want to run Mystical Fire or whatever, and you're not running those normal type moves, you might as well run Cute Charm. And you can do similar stuff with the other Pokemon on that list. You can do similar stuff with Milotic, with Clefable. Clefable being a redirector, like Magic Guard and Unaware, are really nice. But you may want to run Cute Charm if you think you're going to get faked out. So because Unaware really only helps if they have boosts, and Magic Guard, it's really only helpful if they if you think you're going to be taking extra passive damage for some reason from like Toxic or like a Gmax Wildfire or something like that. So sometimes Cute Charm isn't a bad ability to run, depending on the matchup. So I think that's a really cool one. So I think it's just something to consider for those Pokemon who get it. Let's jump into the next one. So the next one I think is really interesting. I've talked about this before, but it's Flower Veil. So Comfey is right now the only Pokemon that gets Flower Veil. And I think this ability is so cool. So what it does is grass types can't have their stats lowered or status inflicted. Meaning you can't, if you throw a Comfey next to a Rillaboom, right? Comfey is Triage is a great ability. You get priority Draining Kiss and Giga Drain, but Comfey already has 100 base speed. It's a pretty fast Pokemon, so you don't necessarily need that +3 priority all the time. And if you're in a matchup when the other team, you think, okay, Rillaboom looks pretty good, but maybe they have a Sableye with Prankster Will-O-Wisp. Or they have, an Incineroar, and you say, well, if I use Rillaboom with high horsepower and like Life Orb, I can KO this Incineroar. But the Intimidate, after Intimidate, I can't. Well, what's really nice about Flower Veil is you can't have your stats lowered, so you can't be intimidated. You can't have, you can't be Prankster Charmed or anything like that. But you also can't have your status affected. So, with something like Rillaboom, Prankster Will-O-Wisp will fail because Rillaboom is protected by that Flower Veil. So, I think there are definitely some matchups when this can be super useful with Comfey and any grass type. It doesn't have to be Rillaboom. I know people might think about pairing it with Rillaboom a lot because of that Grassy Surge, which helps with Comfey's Giga Drains, and it helps with Floral Healing. But you don't have to use Rillaboom or a Grassy Terrain user. You can use any grass type. You can use Kartana, and that way Kartana can't be intimidated. Like, there are a lot of really cool uses of this ability, and I think because triage is like, I would say arguably it's like one of the better abilities in the game. Like, it's just so good, and only Comfey gets it. So most people just assume Comfey is a triage bot or something like that. Like, but mixing it up with Flower Veil can really throw off your opponent's game plans, and I think it can really can be really useful in specific matchups. So that's one that I really wish I would see used more. I think it's a really, really cool mix-up. Another interesting one is hydration. So hydration, I think it's kind of cool on something like Lapras, right? So I think Lapras is water absorb. Most people aren't going to hit Lapras with water moves, so it probably won't come into play that much unless you're pairing Lapras next to, say, a Surf user or something like that to heal up the Lapras. That's like a situation when you might want to use it. Shell Armor is arguably just the best ability on Lapras, just naturally, because you never have to worry about critical hits. And if you're playing in a Gmax league and you set up that Gmax Resonance, you get that Aurora Veil, so you really don't want opponents to crit through it because that just sort of defeats the purpose of it. So Shell Armor is a really nice ability on Lapras. But I think Hydration is also really interesting, especially in Max formats, because if you're running, I mean, you can run that Gmax Resonance with something like Ice Beam, and that turns into Gmax Resonance. But then you might run Hydro Pump, and so you can set your own rain. And so Hydration, you have your status cured at the end of the turn if Rain Dance is active, or if rain is happening, basically. So with Hydration, what I think is really cool about it is, most people aren't going to burn Lapras, probably not going to poison, but Lapras could potentially get paralyzed, with like a Thunder Wave, Prankster Thunder Wave maybe. Also, I think another way to deal with Lapras is because Lapras typically doesn't deal out a ton of damage. A nice thing to do is just put it to sleep, with Yawn or Sleep Powder or something. So obviously Lapras can run like Thunder and set its own electric terrain to prevent that. But Hydration is also a cool way to do it, because if you set the rain and then they with a Max Geyser and then they put you to sleep, well, you just wake up at the end of the turn with your Hydration. I think in like a non-max format or even in a regular format, another thing you could do is run like a super bulky Lapras with, like, let's say you're running like Curse and you want to run physical Lapras. I mean, you'd have to set rain somehow, so this could be in a max league or a non-max league, but you just have to have some way to set that rain. But then you can run Rest. And so, you can run Rest, and you set up a few defensive boosts. Let's say you go pretty specially defensive, and once you set up a couple curses, and they might say, okay, well, now they can just take you out. Well, you rest, and if it's raining at the end of the turn, you'll immediately wake up and be able to attack that next turn. So I think that's a really cool aspect of hydration, or a really cool use of it. And like I said, you can do this with any of the Pokemon. I think Goodra gets it. And let's see. I think it gets Aqua Tail. Yeah, it gets Aqua Tail. So you could definitely do it on the physical side. And if you are doing it with Goodra, it might be nice, because if you do, since Goodra can go physical or special, you might get burned. That's very possible. Goodra, you can get burned, you can get slept, you can get paralyzed. I think those are all worries potentially, and so just setting that Max Geyser Rain is nice, because it heals you. Now it heals you at the end of the turn. So if you do get burned, and then you set the Max Geyser, like, you're still going to be burned for that turn, or if Rain's already active, you're still gonna be burned for that turn, but at the end of the turn, you're free from it. So the next turn, you're free to attack at full power. So I think hydration is a really interesting one. This is another one I like. Pressure. So pressure is it's common with the legendaries, but there are some Pokemon who use it. So like something like Articuno, you might run it just because you don't have a better ability. But I think there are some Pokemon that are a lot of Pokemon with pressure have a better ability to run, right? Moltres has Flame Body, Raikou Entei have Inner Focus, Dusknoir has Frisk, Corviknight, Mirror Armor, Unnerve. Like, all these are really, really good abilities. But I think there are potentially reasons to run pressure. So, let's say you want to run it on Entei or something like that, right? If they don't have reliable fake-out users, or maybe you're not scared of them, you could run pressure. But I think the key with pressure is, Inner Focus is almost always going to be better because you're immune to Intimidate as well. It's really cool if you're facing Ditto. So Ditto, when Ditto transforms, right, its moves copy your moveset, perfectly, but Ditto only gets 5 PP for each move. So, and sometimes, Dittos typically run Choice Scarf. In draft, you have a lot more flexibility, but if Ditto is running Choice Scarf, right, and you have a Pokemon with pressure out there, whether or not they transform into you, they're only going to have 5 PP. And then, so what you can do is, if you have Protect, let's say, turn 1 Ditto attacks and you Protect. Well, now they've wasted 2 PP. Then, next turn Ditto attacks. Okay, now they've wasted 4 PP. And they have 1 left. And then the next turn you Protect. Well, you've only been attacked once. You've taken 3 turns. And now Ditto has no PP for their move. And if Ditto isn't Choice Scarfed, it's still annoying because each move can only be used 3 times instead of 5, which is pretty big. So if you're facing a team with Ditto on it in draft, I think pressure can be really, really useful. Pressure can be used if Pokemon have something like a 5 PP move. So I think it could be also useful against like Cresselia with Moonlight. So Moonlight has 5 PP, and if you use all your PP ups, it has 8. But Cresselia is typically a Pokemon that's going to want to stall you out and boost up. Maybe it's running a Calm Mind, Moonlight, Psychic, and Energy Ball. So Cresselia with its bulk, it can just heal. But it only gets 8 Moonlights, and with pressure, it's only going to be able to use that 4 times. And so that's pretty reasonable to stall them out of Moonlights if you just keep attacking and Cresselia has to click Moonlight 4 times and then they have no more healing. That's a really good way to shut down Cresselia's usability, I think. So there are other specific situations when you might want to use it, but I think it's probably most effective against something like a Ditto because all of Ditto's moves are only going to have 5 PP. So that's really, really useful. Okay, so let's jump into the next one. The next one is Ice Body. So Ice Body is... so like something like Arctovish, I think, is actually a kind of an interesting example. Other Pokemon can work too, but so with Arctovish typically runs Slush Rush, right? You're gonna pair Arctovish next to a Hail Setter. So Ninetales is pretty fast. Arctovish with Slush Rush, especially if you go fast, you're gonna be hitting 200 speed. You're going to be pretty fast. So a way to counter this, they might run a slow Pokemon who resist ice, maybe Bronzong, and they might set up Trick Room. And say, okay, well, you're going fast. I'm going to set up Trick Room. But I think what's cool about mixing it up with like Ice Body is if you lead this right away, and you think they might try to counter your speed with Trick Room, you may actually be running a slow, bulky Arctovish. You know, you can get pretty slow if you run a slow Arctovish. So you can run pretty slow, and then they set up Trick Room, and now you have a super slow Arctovish who's actually healing 1/16 of its HP every turn with this Snow Warning. So you're still taking advantage of that hail, but it's a nice mix-up on your opponents, and can probably throw them off because then it makes the Trick Room awkward. Now, obviously, once they know that, they don't have to set up Trick Room, but you still have a fast Ninetales who can throw Blizzards out, so and it's still pretty annoying. But I think, because you could also run Water Absorb, but again, Arctovish probably isn't going to be hit by water moves, so it's probably not super useful. But Ice Body could definitely be useful there. The other reason why you might want to run Ice Body on certain Pokemon is if your opponent has Hail and you have an Ice Body Pokemon. So Ice Body, Mr. Rhyme, Screen Cleaner is not bad. Tangled Feet usually isn't that useful, but Ice Body could be. Regice, Clear Body is really nice. You can't have your stats lowered by Snarls or whatnot, but they might not use that. And Ice Body is really nice. Same with Walrein. Thick Fat is pretty solid most of the time. Reduces that fire damage. But if you're facing a Hail team, Walrein's a really, really nice counter to that Ice mode because it resists it, and you're going to be healing every turn. So it's going to be really annoying to get rid of that Walrein. So I think Ice Body is a really interesting one. Usually as a mix-up or to a counter to Hail modes. So that's a nice option. Another interesting one is Leafguard. So Leafguard is an ability that if Sunny Day is active, you can't be statused. So I think Leafguard is interesting in a couple scenarios. So if you have, say, a Sun team, let's say Ninetales and Leafeon, right? Well, Leafeon's already pretty fast. You've got 95 base speed. Ninetales is also pretty fast. You got 100 base speed. And so if you have that Sun up, Leafeon is a physical Pokemon and can be pretty threatening. So you can run Leaf Blade. I don't know. No, it doesn't get Assurance. Whatever, Iron Tail. Maybe it's a max format. You're going for max moves. But if you don't, since you're already kind of fast, if you don't need the speed, you could run Leafguard if you're worried about a couple things. Mainly, I would say again something like a Sableye and Prankster Will-O-Wisp. That if you think they might slow you down that way, that's an option. Another thing is like Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl can run Prankster Thunderwave. Now, obviously, you're not getting the speed boost from Drought, so you're already at I guess half speed of what you would be because you're not running Chlorophyll. But at least you won't be able to be Thunderwaved, and then you don't have that full para chance. So that's kind of nice. And if they do overwrite the weather, you're not at half speed then. So I think specifically it's probably going to be best against Prankster Pokemon. You probably wouldn't see Leafeon going to sleep or being toxic or frozen necessarily. But I think it's an interesting mix-up in that sense. You could also run Leafguard. You could also run it on something like Tangrowth or Tangela. I think with Tangela, it could be interesting because if you are using something like, now obviously Regenerator is really nice if you're going to be swapping around a lot, but if you are using a Sun Pokemon like Torkoal or Ninetales, you don't necessarily have a need to use Chlorophyll if you're just planning on using Tangela to redirect attacks. So let's say you're redirecting moves. You have Rage Powder Protect. You know, if you do have the Sun Up, Leafguard isn't bad because you can redirect like those Thunder Waves. If you are facing something like a Grimmsnarl, like, you know, even though Tangela doesn't need the speed, just getting full parrot is kind of annoying. So I think there are rare scenarios when you actually might want to use Leafguard. And again, it's going to be pretty niche, right? A Sunsetter is probably going to be in play, whether it's on the opposing team or your team. And then most likely you're going to be facing something like Prankster Will-O-Wisp, Prankster Thunderwave. Because grass Pokemon can't be affected by Sleep Powder, you can get Yawned, obviously, so Yawn can be annoying to put them to sleep. But yeah, you don't have to worry about Sleep Powder. So it's mostly going to be when you're worried about Will-O-Wisp on something like Leafeon or Thunderwave. And then same with Tangela or you know, something like Thunderwave could be kind of annoying. So that's that's an interesting one. And the last one I'm going to talk about that I think has a couple applications and is pretty cool is Limber. So Limber is an ability that prevents you from being paralyzed. And I think it's really cool. Maybe on something like Lopunny. So with Lopunny, you can't be paralyzed, and yeah, gaining that ability cures it when paralyzed. But basically, what you would want to do is if they have a Thunderwave user or something like that, that's pretty annoying. Or if you think that they are going to maybe nuzzle you or discharge, it can be pretty annoying. So, or even if you're facing like a G-Max Pikachu, I don't know when that would happen, but it could. And so I think Limber in those scenarios is pretty useful because I think one situation when I've used it before is like, let's say you're facing a Liepard, and they can have Prankster Thunderwave, and you guarantee want to get some move off. You know, obviously you can run Fake Out, but then let's say you really want to you really want to get this Fake Tears off before your other Pokemon, right? So you really want to Fake Tears your opponent, and you're just like, man, if they Thunderwave my Lopunny, my plan goes out the window. Well, or let's say you're facing a Raichu, and they, you know, you think they might have Nuzzle. You're like, oh man, if they Nuzzle me, you know, Raichu is a faster base speed, 110 to 105, and it'll just throw out your plan completely. Limber is a nice way to just sort of avoid that situation entirely because you don't have to worry about getting paralyzed. You don't have to worry about the speed drop, and you don't have to worry about just getting fully paralyzed and not even moving that turn. So I think Limber is a really, really nice one for these fast supportive types. You know, something like Lopunny, something like Persian also gets it. Persian also gets Unnerve, which is a really nice ability, but Limber can also be really useful if you're like, oh, I really want to get this Icy Wind off. I really want to get this, you know, whatever move off, you know. And it helps if you are facing those Pokemon who might Nuzzle you, who might Thunderwave you. One other sort of niche, I think, cool application of it is with Toxapex. So Toxapex gets Regenerator is generally the best ability on it, but Limber can also be kind of cool because if you're trying to proc a weakness policy on Toxapex and maybe get, I mean, you could go weakness policy Toxapex and you know, maybe throw off some big moves. So let's say, actually, Toxapex has better attack. I didn't even realize that. So let's run Gunk Shot. And do we get Waterfall? We get Liquidation. Okay. So yeah, let's say you run something like that, and you want to run Weakness Policy. You can run that next to a Discharge user. You know, so let's say you're running Discharge, because Um, there's not many spread moves that hit all Pokemon. For electric, it's only discharge and parabolic charge, which most Pokemon don't get parabolic charge. So if you are trying to use discharge to proc a weakness policy, it's nice because you have the chance to paralyze your opponents. But the annoying thing about using discharge to proc weakness policies is that if you do max this Toxapex and go for a max move, you risk, or with any water type, I guess, you risk getting paralyzed. And then, you proc your weakness policy, but if you get full para'd, it's just a total waste of a turn, so risky, probably not worth it, especially because you have a 30% chance of getting paralyzed. But if you have Limber, then you don't have to worry about the paralysis, and it's kind of nice because you can potentially paralyze your opponents, and then they can't do anything. But in addition to that, you are safely proccing your weakness policy, and you don't have to worry about that full para chance. So I think that's kind of one niche application of Limber as well. And yeah, I mean that's I think pretty useful. So if you guys enjoyed this video, or if you enjoy this style of video, let me know. I think I always enjoy people coming up with creative sets in draft and seeing that stuff. So I enjoy talking about it too. And if you guys have any ability suggestions, like I said, I can do this with some other stuff. So if you want me to come up with interesting ways to use certain abilities, let me know in the comments. And we will see everybody later. Peace.